If you're watching this after the 2024 presidential election, then JD Vance is just one Donald Trump heartbeat away from becoming president. Or you're already forgetting who JD Vance was. It doesn't really matter though, because this video isn't about JD Vance or me. Well, it's definitely going to be more about me than you'd like it to be, but there's lots of think pieces about JD Vance's life that you can go click over to, including a very boring book. It's about the type of person JD Vance is and the type of person I am. We started in similar places, but wind up in wildly different ones. And as time moves on, I assure you, there will always be people like JD and me, for better or worse. My name is Joel Straley, and I think I should start with a confession. I, like JD Vance, have accomplished nothing great in my life. I am not a senator, a governor, or a former cabinet secretary. I haven't started a billion-dollar company or a world-changing nonprofit. But despite all that, I still want to be President of the United States. Much more than JD Vance ever has. But I will likely never be president. But JD Vance just might. JD Vance will never be president. If you know anything about JD Vance, it's three things. One, he's the current Republican vice presidential candidate for the oldest Republican nominee in U.S. history, which means if elected, he will become president. B, he was raised by hillbillies named Mamaw and Papaw in Appalachia. And C, he probably didn't fuck a couch. Everyone loves pointing out they have similar backgrounds to JD Vance, and he just doesn't get it.
We're from the same generation. We're both from the Midwest.
People like JD Vance know nothing about small-town America. My town had 400 people in it, 24 kids in my graduating class, 12 were cousins, and he gets it all wrong.
JD Vance ain't from here.
They not like us. They not like us. They not like us.
Unlike those guys, JD and I were born 28 days apart and just 50 miles away from each other. But somewhere along the way, our lives took very different paths. One that led JD to being a lot closer to becoming president than mine did. In many ways, I was taking the Al Franken route. Do comedy in New York.
Who here likes cocaine? Who here likes cocaine? Who wants to have me do cocaine off their tits?
Get on Saturday Night Live.
Dancing and holding guns. And if you want to see this and so much,
Write books about how fat Rush Limbaugh is. Become a senator. Behave myself, then become president. So with that said, I should be halfway through being the 80-year-old candidate for New Yo Jersey and running for the president of Sino America in 2068 during the AI-induced water wars. But despite wanting to be president more than JD Vance ever has, I am currently 40 years old, sitting here making a dumb YouTube video while JD Vance is out there making history.
This is the worst vice presidential pick probably since 1972 when George McGovern chose Thomas Eagleton. It's only gotten worse.
So why is JD Vance so close to being president, and yet I'm so far away? What happened? Many of the reports on JD's life would have you believe that maybe my mother just didn't put out enough cigarettes on me. Maybe my dad should have walked out on us. Should I have joined the Marines, then gone to Yale Law School, and then became friends with Peter Thiel, who would help finance my Senate campaign as I sold my soul to the Heritage Foundation? Probably. But let's find out. JD's entire identity is built on the idea that he rose from poverty-stricken Appalachia to living the American dream. He wrote it all down for a best-selling memoir that became a Netflix movie most memorable for making Glenn Close wear a huge t-shirt. Is just being from Ohio enough to become president? Maybe. It has produced the highest number of presidents, with 8 of the whitest names you've ever heard. William Henry Harrison, Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, James A. Garfield, Benjamin Harrison, William McKinley, William H. Taft, Warren G. Harding, Harry H. Harrison, and Harrison Harry Harrison Jr., the son of Harry Harriman. So in our paths to the White House, JD and I both have the unearned confidence of middle-class white men, and we took a look at the 46 former presidents and thought, yeah, why not me? So where did he go right and I go wrong?
Who am I? Why am I here?
JD Vance was born August 2nd, 1984 in Middletown, Ohio. Just 28 days later, and 2 counties away, I was born on August 31st, 1984 in Springfield, Ohio.
742 Evergreen Terrace, Springfield, Ohio, Maud. Come on in.
And 4 months later, in Akron, Ohio, LeBron James was born. So why did JD Vance and I not become one of the greats of basketball? That'll be covered in a follow-up video. So first, are Middletown and Springfield similar? Was JD's life much different in Middletown than mine was in Springfield?
There's a community called Springfield, Ohio, and it's very close to my heart because Springfield, Ohio, if any of you know the state of Ohio, it is nearly a carbon copy of Middletown, Ohio, where I grew up.
Springfield is in Clark County, founded by George Rogers Clark, seen here being played by Jeff Daniels. Here's the hospital I was born in. It's been torn down. Here's the elementary school. It's been torn down. And here's the mall that everyone hung out at. It's permanently closed, but no one has bothered to tear it down. JD Vance is just a good old boy, and you can tell because he called his grandparents Mama and Papa. Well, so did I. So did everyone.
Is that like Tennessee for daddy?
No, that's like Grandpappy, you know?
And Papa, well, he left to fight the Japanese in the Pacific. I had a Papa in the Navy in the Pacific Theater, and the other Papa was in Germany. But is that enough for JD Vance to truly have the Ohio experience? I hope so, because his book Hillbilly Elegy became a New York Times bestseller in the aftermath of Trump's takeover of the Republican Party. It was a way of explaining how the Midwest working class fell for Donald Trump.
Trump is a really bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
Now, I think I speak for all Ohioans when I say, what the hell does elegy mean? But JD Vance assures us that the hillbillies he grew up around love to read.
I know a lot of people, a lot of friends and family who do like to read books, including mine.
Okay, sure, I guess. So the book sold, and Ron Howard made a movie about it.
Classic example of Hollywood getting involved in politics.
And all of Washington, D.C. and the coastal elites got to try and see what the hell had been happening in these flyover states for the last 40 years.
His rise was created by the mainstream media. It was the liberals who embraced him. It was the liberals who were reading Hillbilly Elegy, not Trumpsters.
The story of how a rose grew from the Rust Belt and a poor Ohio boy picked himself up by his bootstraps to achieve his childhood dream of becoming a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. JD Vance became the Oracle of Ohio. Copyright me. A man who can speak for us simple folk.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
Now, was everyone that JD and I grew up around in Ohio racist? I don't know. All I can tell you is that this photo is currently on Springfield's Wikipedia page. Not looking good. One fun thing about JD's hometown is that it was slammed by the former daughter of the previous worst Republican vice presidential nominee, Bristol Palin. Yes, Bristol Palin wrote a book. And in it, she reviews a small-town hotel for some reason. The raggedy old hotel had dated furniture, small rooms, ugly pink walls, and an abundant supply of cockroaches. A Middletown resident said, "The Manchester Inn, not just myself, everyone has stories about it. So just someone to say something like that just to sell a book, I find that very offensive." I can't shame Middletown for having a shitty hotel because Springfield has our own pride and joy. The Drake. This is the dirtiest, most disgusting, poorly run business in America. We found bloody needles in our room. I do want to say that nowhere in Hillbilly Elegy is the common phrase that I heard growing up all the time in Ohio. Hey, let me get a pack of Marlboro Reds and a Mountain Dew.
I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday, and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys.
A man never drank a duff in his life.
High caffeine, low calorie.
No one drinks fucking Diet Mountain Dew. Well, some people do. Fine. Hey, let me get a pack of Marlboro Lights and a Diet Mountain Dew. Now, I admit that compared to JD Vance, or at least the image of himself that he portrays in the book, I must come off as a trust fund kid. Although he does say in the book that he didn't even grow up in the really poor part of town, but in the middle area. He mentions payday loans, but nowhere does he mention something that I thought was common for all families in Ohio: layaway. My mom was a mostly stay-at-home mom, but she worked during the Christmas season, and I remember putting things away on layaway, or getting new school clothes in June or July and putting things on layaway at Hills or Kmart. Kmart, which, by the way, JD calls his favorite store. His favorite store is Kmart. Now, he doesn't say this, but I assume that it's because in the 90s, Kmart's had popcorn and ices, but favorite store? Come on, man. It's especially weird because Middletown, turns out, has a place called Lester's Rock and Roll Shop that sells records, guitars, and skateboards, and has this heartwarming comment on Google: "I've been playing off and on since I was 15. I'm now 48 and homeless. How can I get a guitar? I'm flat broke and no income. Playing guitar is the only thing that I can call my own. I really miss playing. I will give you a guitar." Speaking of Kmart, there is another mart that is vital to understanding the downfall of rural America in the 90s. One that J.D. Vance should know well. Walmart. Walmart was the place to hate in the 90s.
They buy everything in Walmart that they used to buy from these 5 or 6 places here in town that have gone out or more. They walk back out, they get in their car, and they leave. Okay. Tappahannock doesn't see a red cent of their money. Walmart does.
Now, this is not going to be a Walmart bad video, but we will come back to this a bit later. J.D. Vance also never mentions Touchdown Jesus, which is literally a highlight of growing up in this area. If you know someone from Southeast Ohio, just ask them what happened to the original Touchdown Jesus. It was struck by lightning and caught on fire and burned down. My dad got a scholarship to go to Ohio State University, fully paid, just like J.D.
The Ohio State University. I'm sorry, Michigan. I had to get that in there.
OH! Wow, we have fun. My dad's parents couldn't afford the expenses and didn't encourage him to go to college, so he didn't go. Instead, he had a son at 18 and one at 20 and started a family. He was a millwright. He walked into a semi-truck manufacturing plant at 18, and he worked there for the next 30 years. My dad, and everyone's dad in Springfield, Ohio, worked at Navistar.
We are Navistar.
Then suddenly, everyone's dad didn't work at Navistar. This was the result of NAFTA.
You can move your factory south of the border, pay $1 an hour for labor, hire a young 25, that's assuming you've been in business for a long time, you've got a mature workforce. Pay $1 an hour for your labor, have no health care, that's the most expensive single element in making a car, have no environmental controls, no pollution controls, and no retirement, and you don't care about anything but making money, there will be a giant sucking sound going south.
Hillbilly Elegy is essentially a book about what happened to the Rust Belt in the 90s, and it doesn't even have the word NAFTA in it. In fact, the book spends more time talking about Mountain Dew mouth. Now, we don't need to do a deep dive into NAFTA. I think it would suffice just to have a look at a chart of U.S. manufacturing jobs over time. It seems like JD has changed his tune recently. Or it's more convenient now to talk about NAFTA than it was in 2016 when he was pretending to be a hillbilly, which might be why he was more interested in talking about Mountain Dew mouth. Either way, JD has been talking about NAFTA now.
You go back to 1994, I was a 3rd grader at Roosevelt Elementary School on Central Avenue, which doesn't exist anymore. We've got some Roosevelt people in here, God bless you. And 1994, this country gave a sweetheart trade deal to Mexico that sent hundreds of thousands of good manufacturing jobs, many of them in our communities, to Mexico. That was a bad idea. We shouldn't have done it. And Donald Trump said it was a bad idea, right? The current administration, by the way, supported it.
This is basically true. My dad in 1996 wanted to vote for a candidate opposed to NAFTA and therefore had to support a third-party candidate who we will talk about soon. One person in Congress who did oppose NAFTA at the time was the senior senator from Ohio, Sherrod Brown, who will also come up later. JD also took shots at NAFTA in his RNC speech.
When I was in the 4th grade, a career politician by the name of Joe Biden supported NAFTA, a bad trade deal that sent countless good jobs to Mexico.
Boo! Thank God most Republicans then and the 1996 Republican presidential candidate didn't also support NAFTA. Boo! Oh wait, they did. Oh well, boo to everyone. At the end of Vance's RNC speech, the band played Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop, which was very famously the campaign song of Bill Clinton's 1992 campaign, which led to NAFTA.
To Donald Trump and had people coming and chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And that was what he was referring to by somebody who stabbed him in the back. So J.D. Vance entirely loyal to Donald Trump, so much so that he said that if it had been him instead of Mike Pence, he would have thrown those electoral votes back to the states and effectively single-handedly overturned the 2020 election.
To his book's credit, he does spend time talking about steel, the types of steel manufacturing plants that caused the Midwest to earn the moniker of Rust Belt. These plants, like Middletown's AK Steel, also called Armco, were also affected by NAFTA, and like Navistar, were caught in numerous disputes with their unions throughout the 90s. Rifts with its unions and safety records, including 10 fatalities at its plant in 4 years, resulted in fines and scrutiny from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, in 1996. There was a lockout at the Mansfield, Ohio plant after a disagreement on a 3-year labor contract with 620 USWA employees. Yet in discussing AK Steel, JD never uses the word unions a single time. What comes up more than unions? Beaver Hunt, which if you're watching this on the internet, then it's exactly what you're thinking it is. They found an extensive magazine collection, including a few issues of Beaver Hunt, a periodical that I can assure you has nothing to do with aquatic animals. Mamaw found it hilarious. "Fucking Beaver Hunt," she roared. "Who comes up with this shit?" She and Denise hatched a plot to take the magazines home and mail them to the pallbearer's wife. Oh, but our boy, he loves unions now.
Very well. How are you doing?
Nice to see you, Marcy.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
First time here?
First time here. Yep.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Unions was a word I heard a lot growing up because I was the child of at least 2 generations of Union Democrats. Despite this, JD and I do have similarities in our background. After a few weeks in kindergarten, I was held back for a year. I had to do 2 years of preschool because they said I was too antsy for kindergarten. So JD, I feel you, man. Which brings us to 1992, when JD and I were 8 years old. My family and I were camping in my grandparents' RV, and on the small antenna TV was a man with a funny voice giving a speech. He was running for president and had a very unusual name. I asked my mom, "Who's P-Rot?" I couldn't understand how a man whose name was P-Rot was running for president. In my 8-year-old brain, it seemed obvious that another candidate would just say, "This man's name is P-Rot. He's literally called Rotting P," and that would be enough to end his campaign. So in many ways, at 8 years old, I kind of predicted the type of surface-level bullying politics that we've become accustomed to. Okay, so a quick run-through of how weird I was growing up. Something about the enthusiasm around P-Rot attracted me. I was suddenly a huge fan, even though I wouldn't be able to vote for another 11 years.
Here's the ratio between worker compensation and executive compensation in Japan. Here's the ratio in Europe, and here is the ratio in the United States. Trickle-down economics didn't trickle at all, folks. It all stopped right here. That's not good for the companies, that's not good for the stockholders, that's not good for the country, and that leaves us vulnerable. Excuse me. These guys want to make this kind of money. They ought to be TV anchormen, basketball players, or rock stars. But running a company, look, these fellows have their heads straight here. They're getting appropriate income, but not rock star income.
My second grade teacher began referring to me as Mr. President. I even woke up the night after the 1992 presidential election and saw a Perot rally where his supporters were chanting, "Perot 96, Perot 96. So that day, in my second grade journal entry, I wrote Perot 96. And my teacher wrote, "Bill Clinton is our new president." Well, as you may guess, I did not accept the election results. The next day I wrote, "I got a letter that is going to Ross Perot, and this is my Ross Perot journal." And my teacher wrote, "Don't you like anything else?" No, I did not. Except also Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, but that is for a completely different video. In the 6th grade, I wasn't doing well in social studies, so for extra credit, I wrote a whole 6-page report on FDR.
Etched on the stones in the FDR memorial are his words that are applicable tonight. He said, "The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It's whether we provide enough for those who have little." President Roosevelt, on December 2nd, the Democrats in this House honored those words. We passed a middle-class tax cut, and we passed unemployment insurance, and we provided for those who have little. Tonight, because of the ransom that's been demanded by our Republican colleagues, we're left with a different option. We're left with the option of providing abundance to those who already have much. $130 billion, every dollar borrowed probably from China. Is that fiscally responsible? I think not. And furthermore, President Roosevelt We are in this bill about to destroy your greatest heritage, the Social Security system. The Republicans are opening the door to the destruction of the Social Security system and thereby carrying out their 74-year task.
That same year, when the 1996 presidential election was happening, for no real reason, I made up signs that said, "Not Dole, Joel." Write me in, and maybe if enough people from my 6th grade class do it, they will concede that I will become president even though I'm way under the 35-year age limit. I still feel confident that at 12 years old I would have beaten Bob Dole.
The point I want to make is there are many treatments available for ED, so my advice is get a medical checkup. It's the best way to get educated about ED and what can be done to treat it.
Easy boy.
In 2000, I watched both the DNC and RNC conventions because I thought they seemed fun. It felt like a really cool party. And back then, they didn't even invite Little John or anyone. I also watched a lot of MTV, and Raise the Machine had convinced me that there was no real difference between Al Gore and George W. Bush. So I watched both conventions, in a lot of ways, as an undecided voter.
Invest your money for the future.
Invest in the future.
I've been talking about clean air.
We've got to clean up our air.
I support a ban on soft money.
We will get all of the soft money out of the campaign.
God bless you.
God bless you.
And that's when I knew at 15 years old, I will be voting for Ralph Nader. And also because at the end of the music video was a quote that would shape the rest of my life.
If you're not turned on to politics, politics will turn on you.